have to start off today's video with a little bit of an admission. You know how we always hear a lot of buzzwords from the progressive left, from the far left, and we always get really annoyed when we hear them? Well, occasionally they actually come up with a phrase that I actually quite like. I may not like the way that they use the phrase or who they're using it against, and I don't like the person using it as well, but the phrase itself sometimes is just, it's wonderful. It tells you exactly what they mean by the phrase itself, and I think I need to appropriate that to my side in order to use it to describe people on the progressive left that definitely fit that bill. And to be clear, when I'm talking about the progressive left, I'm not talking about liberals, and I'm not even talking about the whole of the progressive left. I'm talking about the far left radicals who are obsessed with destroying their political opponents at all costs. These unprincipled, honestly, dirtbags that just attack their opponents so viciously while pretending that they're not. And the reason I'm making that distinction is because over at the Better Discourse event, I actually did meet some people who would call themselves progressives, and they were progressive in the policy positions that they were advocating for. For instance, Nico was a guy who did a panel where he advocated for reparations. But Nico also, even though he holds that position I disagree with, is a fantastic guy, and he's a reasonable guy. When he argues for reparations, he brings up points to support those arguments. He doesn't immediately alternate to calling you racist when you disagree with him, and you could have a conversation. And I was surprised after his panel how much I could actually reach agreement on him with, despite the fact that he holds that position that I'm definitely not in line with. So even though this guy is a definite progressive, he's definitely on the left, he's not somebody that I would consider in this category because he's not deceptive. He's not trying to fool you. He advocates for his positions, and he has reasons for those positions, and he doesn't try to hide the ball on you. However, not all progressives are created equal, and everything positive that I just said about somebody like Nico just doesn't apply to people on the Young Turks, the organization, and the individual panelists. Because unlike Nico, who has everything in the surface, and he's telling you what he believes, and he's advocating for his positions with facts, the Young Turks lies in every single regard on their network. They lie about the size of their network, how well they're doing. They lie about the major facts in the stories that they're covering, and they lie about themselves and who they actually are in order to deceive you into thinking that they're actually good, virtuous people. And if you're a longtime viewer of my channel, or you've watched enough Young Turks videos, you'll have seen one of the biggest lies that they put forward on their network, that their side, and specifically them, are somehow the empathetic side. Their side is the side concerned with the suffering of others, and not evil and vicious and nasty like the Republicans, who are completely disgusting and horrible, and definitely a cross between the devil they don't believe in and some other evil deity, which I'm gonna forget the name of, and this sentence is gonna trail off and be completely pointless, and then I'm gonna have to awkwardly transition out of it. You see, what did I tell you? That sentence definitely ended awkwardly. Now, let's get back into the point. The phrase that I want to appropriate from the left is mask off. Now, you know this phrase because every single lefty uses it when they want to not make a point, but they want to just call you racist, saying, oh, your racist side, your Nazi side is peeking out from the mask, it's slipping, we're getting to see who you really are. But I think it way more accurately describes the Young Turks, who, again, promote themselves as this empathetic organization, but then attack people mercilessly even after they die. And the two videos that I want to highlight specifically come from the Young Turks main channel and come from the Damage Report, which is run by John Idarola, which actually features completely different people, because it just accentuates the point that these people are attacking them as an organization. It's not just individuals at the network that are bad people. It's all of them. They all use the veneer of their policy positions being so noble, so virtuous, so empathetic to the world, for them to be bad people and just do inarguably disgusting things to their political opponents. This was a video put up on the Young Turks channel the day that it was announced that former presidential candidate and former CEO of Godfather Pizza, Herman Cain, had died. Look at how Cenk is gloating about his death and mocking Herman Cain because he's on another side of the political spectrum.
Let's keep it real. Is there a silver lining? But that reality is probably not. So what do I mean? He went to Donald Trump's Tulsa rally and proudly took a picture not wearing a mask around other people. They kept tweeting out, send in more prayers. The prayers are working. And God is listening to you. Okay, don't worry, God is listening to you. Okay, and he tweeted out, "This virus is strong, but our God is stronger." See, guys, I love you, but this is nonsense talk. No, he's dead. So, according to Herman Cain's logic, that means coronavirus is stronger than God, because he set up a competition between the strength of God and coronavirus. Guess who won? Today, coronavirus won.
Again, they didn't put that video out a week after, 2 weeks after, 1 day after. They put that out the day that Herman Cain died. And even the title in and of itself has an exclamation point. Like, they're excited to report the news of this conservative Republican's person's death. It's insane. And Cenk's tone in there where he's talking about how, Herman Cain was wrong about God, because if God was really stronger than the virus, Herman Cain would live, and Cenk Uygur is superior to him because he doesn't believe in God, even though Herman Cain was probably feeling very sick and he was trying to calm his followers and, have a little faith that he would recover. Obviously, that faith did not get him to recover, and he ultimately passed away. But mocking a person of faith while they're on their deathbed and after they died from a virus is ridiculous. And the entirety of the mocking of Herman Cain is solely due to the fact that Herman Cain is a Republican and they see everything as a left versus right thing, and this is a cheap way to score political points by standing on the grave of somebody that you hated and actively despised because, again, they disagreed with you on politics. And for those of you who are thinking, well, Sean, Herman Cain was playing down the pandemic, so you can kind of politicize this because he was a public figure doing so, and he notably attended that Trump rally in Tulsa prior to his diagnosis. Yes, there is a fair way to cover that. This isn't it, but there is a fair way to make those points. But it's also fair, and it would be, a service to objective journalism to point out that Herman Cain's symptoms and when he actually got sick actually don't align with that Tulsa rally. So even if you were going to make the point that Cain was infected at the time of the Tulsa rally, the virus was not transmitted to Cain at that point. You can just look at the timeline and see that obviously. Alright, but fine, Cenk was a little bit disgusting there, but Herman Cain is fair game, and you're willing to excuse it because you disagreed with Herman Cain on his level of seriousness when it came to the pandemic. I get it, I don't agree with that position, but let's move on to Donald Trump's younger brother, Robert Trump, and his death, and John Iadarolla's reaction to that death on the damage report.
Over the weekend, news broke that the president's younger brother had passed away, which is obviously very sad. And, my best wishes go out to every other member of the Trump family other than Donald Trump.
Again, this is coming from the supposed network of empathy. John Iadarolla is actually going to go off later in this video on Donald Trump for not having empathy when he opened a video about his younger brother suddenly dying by saying, "My condolences to everybody in the Trump family except for Donald Trump."
He says that he was very close and he feels a lot of, he feels terrible, which any other human would. I find it difficult to believe that Trump is affected by anything like that.
His older brother, somebody who might actually feel hurt by this. And this is an excellent point to always take with you when it comes to thinking of the Young Turks, or really a lot of political actors on the platform. A lot of times people project their negativity and their faults onto their political opponents. The Young Turks are not empathetic. The Young Turks dehumanize their opposition. But rather than acknowledging their own faults, their own limitations as people, their own weaknesses, they project that onto their political opponents, and they use the fact that their policy proposals, while not actually producing better results, sound more empathetic in order to cover for the negativity that they project out into the world every single day.
It's very sad. Losing a family member is terrible. It is weird, though, that he passed away in the middle of a pandemic. And I know a lot of people are thinking this. If it was related to that, I don't think we're ever going to find out. I mean, that would be, tragedy on top of tragedy. I feel like we would never find out. Am I crazy? But if he is as concerned about, the loss as he tweeted about, I think, if it was COVID, shouldn't it change his opinion? And I was going to ask you, do you think that it would? So you believe that wouldn't get through to him?
I mean, it would personally make him wear a mask. But once again, he has to octuple down on his anti-science belief and dog whistle to the most fringiest fringe of the QAnon fringe. He is Q after all.
And like the bad song that the Young Turks is, the second verse is the same as the first, because just like the other video, which started off with them attacking somebody for being their political opponent, even though somebody died, or in this case, the relative of their political opponent died, they immediately jump onto trying to use this for the political benefit, and they start speculating about the death of Trump's brother, saying that Trump is not only not a person worthy of empathy when his brother dies, but also, on top of that, he's actively covering up what killed his brother because he wants to save face politically. And even if what killed his brother was the virus, which in their opinion Trump isn't taking seriously enough, Trump wouldn't care because he's such an evil, unempathetic person. I mean, they're the ones who are literally trying to use the man's own younger brother's death against him politically for their partisan purposes because they hate him and they don't see him as a person. But Trump is the one who only sees the world in terms of what benefits him and how to spin things to benefit him. I mean, the Young Turks are totally spinning a story about a man's younger brother dying, something that should garner at least a little bit of sympathy. I mean, I could imagine losing one of my own siblings and how devastated I would be. And they're taking that, twisting it, making up new things, speculating on top of that, and somehow turning it into an anti-Trump story because that fits the Young Turks agenda. But no, that's because TYT is so empathetic, so thoughtful, so considerate of others. They see themselves in the shoes of others all the time, and Trump is the bad guy. You get how this works yet?
I just have to say, the other person's tweet I saw about this was Joe Biden. Now, I understand that he is trying to run a campaign in, 1986 in the year 2020, and he's trying to have sort of, respect and honor his opponent. A man who actively sought foreign interference into his own personal family, ties in order to undermine the election, in order to lie about his campaign and then was impeached over it, who's dragged his entire family through the mud, including the deceased family members. Do you really have to express your condolences? And I gotta say, I don't agree with her politics, but I do agree with the way that I think Kamala Harris is just a little bit over all of that. Just like I think we all are over being rising above and offering our condolences when the president's brother dies. No, man, you don't need to say anything.
Also, Francesca Fiorentini is terrible, and she works for AJ Plus, which is an offshoot of Al Jazeera, which is from the state of Qatar, which is a country that allows slave labor, and she constantly lectures the United States of America on our labor policies. So just remember that. She's also just a terrible person. She adds nothing to the show, and honestly, she's just horrific, and you can just see her on this panel being equally as terrible as John Iadarola. Now, the funny thing about this, the interesting thing about this, is that the Young Turks and progressive left media recently had a sudden and tragic death. This, of course, was the death of one Michael Brooks, who reportedly died from a sudden medical condition. Now, nobody in the right-wing media, as far as I can tell, maybe some fringe people that you can find, but definitely not the largest online and longest-running progressive news show, went out of their way to throw shade at Michael Brooks and his family. And Michael Brooks, make no mistake about it, was a communist. He called himself an international socialist. That's what the Soviet Union called themselves. That's who Michael Brooks was. I don't think he was a very good guy. But I didn't make a video speculating about the lack of information in his cause of death. Young guy, sudden medical condition, doesn't make a lot of sense because that's not what we do here. And even though I disagreed with him on policy, and I'll tell you straight up in unequivocal terms, even after he passed, that I did in fact disagree with him on policy, and I didn't think he was a very good guy, I'd left the left with room to grieve for the loss of somebody they considered a friend and a colleague. And this wasn't a blood relative, by the way. The Young Turks are going after Trump for his blood relative, his sibling's death. And I don't know how close Trump was to his younger brother. He could have been super close. I've heard rumors that in the 90s they kind of split apart and they've only recently made amends. But honestly, that's completely irrelevant. Just as irrelevant to me as Michael Brooks or any other left-wing figure that ends up passing away. To me, that's not a time to attack the person. That's not a time to throw their reputation under the bus. You can be honest about a person after they die. You can say, look, I'm not going to make somebody out to be a saint. that I barely even knew or I didn't think was very saintly, but you don't have to go out of your way to dig deep and speculate about their cause of death in order to advance your personal political agenda. That's the difference. That's who the Young Turks are. They pretend to have a similar position to most of the right-wing media. They pretend to be people like myself who don't go out of their way to attack people after they die, kick their friends and family when they're down, but in reality, they are the exact people who do that, and this is a consistent pattern that goes far beyond Donald Trump's brother, Robert Trump, or Herman Cain. So to be clear, this is not an instance of the Young Turks being caught doing something out of character. This is an Anna Kasparian, I'm better than you kind of moment. The mask didn't slip, it's actually fully off, and you're seeing their true face in this moment. You're seeing how they handle the basics of humanity when it comes to their political opponents, and it's that they don't extend anything to their political opponents. Remember that when they're telling you that they want to be in charge of the country in order to take care of you. This is what they think of you, and this is what they think of people like you who are aligned politically with you. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, and I'm leaving this for the end of the video, if this uploads August 22nd of 2020 as I have planned, that will be my 30th birthday. So if you've made it this far in the video, maybe send me a nice happy birthday message in the comments below. I'd appreciate that. Or say something horrible to me based on my birthday. I'd appreciate that less, but you know, it's YouTube, so I gotta leave you open with the opportunity. You guys know the drill. My links are in the description if you want to follow, like, support, whatever. You guys know how to do it. It's all there. Till next time.